Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome to Steelers Almighty, man. We appreciate everybody being in here. Thank you guys for showing up and showing out like you always do. We got a great show for you guys today, man. Let's get into it. First is, should the Steelers keep George Pickens? I mean, we've talked on and off about Pickens, but now it's down to the nitty gritty. Should the Steelers keep Pickens? Second, Steelers defense, I think it was overrated. We hear all these national pundits all the time talk, oh, the Steelers, their championship defense. And us that watch the Steelers are like, what are you talking about? We're going to dig into that a little bit and get into the analytics and maybe not the analytics, but the statistics of it all. Then, Steelers, can they go corner in the first round? You know, it's been a while since the Steelers have actually gone corner in the first, and I think they have a little bit of PTSD from all of that. No disrespect to anybody in the Army, so relax. But yeah, I just think the Steelers have an opportunity to possibly do that. Maybe that's an avenue they need to go, and maybe they are overlooking it. And then lastly, um, can the Steelers take an offensive tackle in the first round? I mean, it's not out of the question. I brought this up the other day in one of the lives. I think it's something that we have to think about. And we'll dig into the nitty gritty on why I think taking another tackle is not crazy, people. So appreciate everybody being in here. It's going to be a good one. Like I said, got a good show lined up, but I want to thank everybody again, as always, for showing up. You can find Steelers Almighty weekly on youtube.com/Steelers Almighty. Anywhere that you have social media, you can find Steelers Almighty. And if you prefer the audio version, you can find us anywhere that you get a podcast at Steelers Almighty. So appreciate everybody being in here, man. Let's get it going. First things first, George Pickens. Look, should the Steelers keep him? You know, there was a lot of talk before the DK Metcalf trade that the Steelers were going to try to trade Pickens. They didn't want to pay him. They wanted to get a draft pick. And then they're like, okay, let's just double up. Let's get a new receiver and let's go from there. It's weird how that narrative has changed ever since the Steelers traded for DK Metcalf. Because now it's like, well, hold on. You know, now that we have Metcalf, let's keep Pickens and let's have two good receivers on the outside. Now they both kind of have the same skill set. There's no doubt about that. They're both not the greatest route runners. Both don't run the entire route tree. That is true, but the talent that both of them have is undeniable. Let's not kid ourselves. But that's kind of the talk is like, well, hold on a second. We don't need to trade Pickens. Let's keep him for a while. Now, the I guess the object or the different opinion to that is, well, if you trade Pickens, you should be able to get a second round pick or somewhere in that vicinity to be able to make up for the pick that you lost for Metcalf. My thinking is, well, at least an idea. Well, now that you have Metcalf, why not use both of them and see what this offense can really do? You know, because if you trade Pickens, all you're doing, okay, we traded Pickens, we got Metcalf, we're still in the same situation that we were previously. Only now we don't have a second round pick. And to me, that defeats the purpose because I think it was common knowledge that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to use, you know, at least a first or second round pick on a wide receiver. Okay, great. Well, now that you don't have one, you use that second round pick to get a receiver. Well, especially the caliber of a DK Metcalf. Now it's like, you know, we can wait on getting a receiver. You know, it still take one in this draft, but it doesn't need to be. Obviously, you don't have a second round pick, but we can wait till the later rounds to try to fill that out, you know, and go from there. Okay, that makes sense. But as far as George Pickens, here's the thing. What if George Pickens matures? Now, I know that's asking a lot, Steeler fans. Let's not kid ourselves. Saying that George Pickens has matured or can mature is asking a lot. It's almost asking the impossible because we have seen him over the last 3 years. It's actually gotten worse. You know, as a rookie, you're thinking, hey, this is just a rookie exuberance. He's a young guy. It got worse the next year, worse his third year. So the probability of him maturing is not necessarily, look, I'm a realist. I get it. I totally understand that. But that possibility is there. But I really want to lean into the whole fact that if you trade George Pickens, you haven't helped your cause, because are we going to be able to, let's just say you trade Pickens for a second round pick. And let's just say the Steelers draft a wide receiver in the second round. Think that guy's going to be as good as Pickens? Are we sure? Because here's the thing about George. You know the talent. The talent is there. There's no denying how talented he is. Even through his faults of not being able to run the whole route tree, which I think a lot of that is schematics, you know. And I get it. Hey, if he could run this route, they would have him run that route. Okay, that's fine. But a lot of it is schematics. You know, you don't see him going over the middle. You know, you don't see a whole lot of that running dig route, shallow cross. You just don't see that, you know, a lot of that. And I think a lot of that has to do with the schematics. You know, if it's not in the playbook, it's hard to be able to run it. That would be what a George Pickens defender would say. And I agree with a lot of that. So you can't necessarily knock him for running the entire route tree if the offense doesn't call for somebody in his position to be able to do that. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. But the next thing is that, like I said, you have these two guys. Why don't you just use them and see what you got? And I think that's the whole thing as far as Aaron Rodgers. Number one, getting Metcalf was a component. That's a Mike Tomlinism, a component of getting Aaron Rodgers, whether you want Rodgers or not. That's not the conversation. But to get any good wide or quarterback or somebody that's capable of playing, we had to have a better wide receiving core. Well, now we have one, and it's an attractive one. So, you know, that helps the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. You get rid of George Pickens, and then you don't have that. That's the whole thing. It's like, yes, you may not want to deal with Pickens' headache. Yes, he's a maturity issue. The effort has not always been there. But you know the talent. And not only that, the Steelers can afford George Pickens for the next 2 years. You know, this year he's on the last year of his contract. There's no way the Steelers are going to pay him unless he just blows up and has some kind of crazy year. But even if they decided to pay him, even if that wasn't the case, he doesn't blow up, they could always franchise him the next year. They can afford that. Even if they pay him, they can afford it. Because remember, the Steelers aren't paying a quarterback. And even if we get Aaron Rodgers on the type of deal that they're talking about getting Aaron Rodgers on, the Steelers could still afford to pay him. So the money isn't the issue. It's whether you want to give it to him, whether you want to deal with it. Because here's the thing about Pickens, and I've always said this, is that the Steelers have dealt with problematic wide receivers for a long time. I mean, Plexico, Burris, Santonio Holmes, obviously Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. Well, Juju was more of a, you know, just an immaturity thing. Chase Claypool, you know, those kind of guys. The thing about them is that you never had to deal with effort. The effort was always there. For instance, Antonio Brown may have been the hardest worker in the National Football League in practice. There was no effort issues when it came to Antonio Brown. There's been effort issues with George Pickens. And that's one of the reasons why they got rid of Deontay Johnson, other than, you know, him fighting Mika Fitzpatrick and almost getting his head knocked off. That's a different conversation for a different day. But the effort has been the problem. With the other guys, you never heard about their effort and their effort being bad. Now, their attitude may have been bad, but it wasn't that they weren't giving effort. Well, we've seen the effort issues with George Pickens. And at some point, the Steelers are going to say enough is enough. And I think this is a telltale year. I've said this a million times, and I'll say it again. George Pickens is trying to get paid. I will always say the last year of your contract, guys are going to be on their best behavior, best effort. They're going to give you what they got because they're trying to get paid. And he hadn't been paid that big money yet. He's trying to get there. If George Pickens acts a fool this year, then I think it's safe to say that we can say that George Pickens is just a fool. I mean, you're trying to get paid. You've had effort and maturity issues. You're trying to get the big dollars. You're trying to show them, hey, man, I'm over that. I'm past that. Even if you're not, you could at least fake it. If George Pickens doesn't do that, I think it would be clear to say that he's just a fool and that he can't grow up and that he just won't give the proper effort. I think it's safe to say that about George Pickens if that's the case. Let's hope that it's not. Hopefully, this young man understands what's in front of him, not just the payday, but also his ability on how good he can be. Because Pickens is talented. I've said it. He is a top 10 talent in the National Football League. Nobody will be able to change my mind about that. Now, is he a top 10 receiver? No, because there's more to it than just having the talent. And if he can get his mind wrapped around, you know what? I got to be one of the hardest workers out here. I got to be able to do other things, block, not just every now and then, block on plays, run all the routes, do all the stuff. If he just does that, I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. Hopefully he's turned that corner. Let's go to the poll question, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the poll. I'm excited about these two playing together. I really am. Should the Pittsburgh Steelers prioritize extending George Pickens' contract before the upcoming season? A, yes, securing his talent is crucial for our future success. Or B, no, let's wait and see how he performs this season. And when you guys make your answers, make sure that you add the number to the grade that you're giving, either A1, so we know that it's poll question number one, or A2, so and so, B1, so and so on down the line. So make sure you do that. But yeah, is it A, you want to secure the talent, or B, no, let's wait and see how he performs? I think you guys know my answer to that. Let's move on. So, the Steelers defense. For decades, the Steelers have been known as a great defense, except for that period of the Killer Bees when the Pittsburgh Steelers couldn't stop a nosebleed. It was unbelievable. But the Steelers, for the most part, have had outstanding defenses. And while the Steelers' defense this past season, first of all, it started off good. Uh, but as the season went on and as the competition got better, the Steelers' defense took a nosedive. Now, there could be some reasons for that. A lot of people want to say, and you would be right, hey, the offense was so bad in those last 6 games, they weren't out on the field enough that the offense was terrible, and so the defense was out there the entire game. Yeah, you'd be right. You would be right. But the Steelers' defense also had holes in it. So let's take a look at what happened. First off, to start the year, I mean, the Steelers' defense was, a top 2 defense the first half of the season. It was really, really good. But it finished 12th, And again, I know that had a lot to do with who we played the first half of the season. The competition got a heck of a lot better the second half. But we did play 2 playoff teams. That's something to remember. The Broncos and the Chargers made the playoffs. Now, we did catch the Broncos really early in the season. I think it was Bo Nix's second start. Matter of fact, I know it was. It was a second start. He's a rookie. We caught him early because they got better as the season went on. But that's not our problem. We played them when we played them. So the next thing is, what do the Steelers excel at? Like, if you had to say the Pittsburgh Steelers were really good at this, you used to be, they stopped the run. Like, nobody runs on the Steelers. Well, that ain't the case anymore. Oh, man, well, their pass rush is just incredible. I mean, they're getting 3, 4, 5, 6 sacks a game. Again, not necessarily the case. Oh, they lock you down in the secondary. You throw the ball over the middle, look out. Well, the rules have kind of eliminated the big hits, but also that's still not the case because we don't have these spectacular corners out there. So what do the Steelers actually excel? I don't have an answer for that. I'm asking you. And if you have an answer, put it in the chat, put it in the comments section because I'd really like to know. I know we want to say that, the pass rush is it because we have TJ Watt, we have Alex Highsmith, we have Cam Hayward, Nick Herbig. We have all these guys. But because of injuries and because of, again, schematics, Steelers didn't always do what was best. They didn't do a lot of stunts, twists, slants, blitzes, zone blitzes. They didn't do a ton of that stuff. It was pretty vanilla stuff. Well, teams figured it out. And so that pass rush went away. Now, again, injuries, TJ Watt had a lot to do with it. But yeah, it just, the vanilla stuff, it just wasn't the same pass rush. It wasn't the feared pass rush, especially the second half of the season that we had seen earlier. I get it. The teams that we played against, better competition. I know that. But if you just watch the games, yeah, it was just like, what are we doing? We're not doing anything. But is there a reason we're not doing anything? We're not doing anything special. Like, we're not blitzing. We're not twisting. TJ Watt lines up in the same position every single play. I mean, you think of some of the other pass rushers in this league, the Myles Garretts, the Micah Parsons, the Trey Hendrickson. Those guys move around. They do different stuff. Now, you can't put all of that on schematics because the word in the street is that TJ Watt doesn't like to move around, that he likes to play in his position, the left side of the defense, and that's what he likes to do. And my counter to that would be, yeah, we understand that, TJ, but what's best for the defense is if we move you around. Maybe you're not going to get the sack, but maybe somebody else is. Maybe they're going to put so much attention to you if you line up on the right side 3 technique that they're going to put so much attention towards you that somebody else is going to be free. It's just a thought. Just a thought. Look at the Steelers' run defense. They were 6th versus the run. 98 yards a game, 98.7 yards a game. There's a lot of leaks in that run defense. And you think, well, 98 yards isn't too bad. Well, you got to consider the last game. And it's not so much the yards per game, although everybody will look at that last game against Baltimore, and that was horrific. It's that teams were able to run the ball when they needed to run the ball. That's the difference. Are you a good defense, and can you stop the run when you know somebody either has to run it or wants to run it? Can you stop it? Steelers couldn't do that. And at the second half of the season, they just could not do that. 621 yards in the last 4 games, that's 155 yards a game. That's not good. That's horrible run defense. That's not good. That's terrible. It's just, like I said, there's a lot of leaks. There was a lot of leaks in that. Now, you move on to the secondary. The secondary struggled in coverage. The first part, what struggled in coverage, is the communication. Again, I've told you guys, I'm going back and doing the entire game, these all 22s. We saw so much communication issues in the next to last game of the regular season against the Chiefs. There was communication issues the last game against the communication never got better. We're at game 5 in our all 22 breakdown right now. The Cowboys game, communication issues. It never got better all season long. You want another reason why I don't want to pay Mika Fitzpatrick $18 million? You're supposed to be in charge of the secondary and getting guys lined up. If that's one of your jobs and we're paying you $18 million, how the hell did the communication lack all season long? Because on the flip side, had that been a quarterback, and in the quarterback, if we can't get guys lined up and we constantly are getting delay of game penalties, we're going to look at the quarterback and say, what the hell's going on? Why can't we do the same with the secondary? We absolutely can. Mika's in charge. Got to take charge, get people lined up. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't want to give a pass to coaching on that either, because we damn sure know that coaches are responsible for all of that as well. Yes. What are you doing in practice? Are you practicing where teams are shifting and motioning and moving around? Are you practicing that? Because to us, the fan, we're looking at the games and it looks like, well, hell, have you practiced at all against a team that motions or a team that shifts 3 or 4 guys? Like, have you talked about this at all? Because a lot of times it looks like it's the first time the Steelers have seen it and they have no idea what's going on. So that's part of it. They were 25th against the pass this year, 228 a game. 228 doesn't seem like a ton, but when you're 25th in the league, yeah, that's not very good, people. They have to be better. But part of that, again, and I'll say it over and over and over, is that the Steelers have not addressed the cornerback position other than Joey Porter Jr. They have not addressed it. You could sign free agents. You can do whatever. Draft somebody in the first round, which we'll get to that. But they have not addressed the position. They have only put a Band-Aid on the position. Even this year, yes, Darius Slay had a great year last year with Philadelphia. Not a good year. He had a great year. But ask me how good his year before was. Ask me how good his year before that was. That's what we're talking about. I get it. I totally get it that he had a great year, but he's 34 years old. Why can't you go out and sign a free agent, a big money free agent that's going to be here for at least 3 years? Could have done that. Didn't do it. Just don't address the position. I don't understand it. But that's part of the problem. I mean, we got guys out there. I mean, Patrick Peterson, who probably shouldn't even have been in the league when the Steelers were playing him, because you notice he didn't play again, and he didn't play good with the Steelers. You know, Dante Jackson thrown in with the Deontay Johnson trade. Played okay. He wasn't horrific. He was better than Patrick Peterson. He wasn't horrific. But again, he's no longer with the Pittsburgh Steelers because he didn't play well enough for us to even consider. It's not like he went out and got a $20 million a year deal. He didn't. The 2 years, $13 million. The Steelers said, we're okay. we don't need that. We don't need him, and we don't need to pay him that. So if that's any indication, well, address the position, though, Steelers. At some point, you got to address the position. Now, talked about it being too vanilla as far as what the Steelers did, and they absolutely were. Steelers blitz 39.5% of the time on third down. That's not enough. Third down. Now, granted, all third downs are not long yardage situations. You know, most people think when you bring up third down, you're thinking, okay, it's third and long. Well, no, if it's 3rd and 2, you know, that's something different. If it's 3rd and 1, that's something different. But what keeps you from blitzing on run plays? What keeps you from a run blitz? There's nothing. But again, on third down, 39.5% of the time, it's not enough. And even when they did, it was a safety. Deshaun Elliott would come. Or maybe they would bring a linebacker. It was never a zone blitz or a corner blitz or free safety blitz or double A gap blitz. It's just not what it was. It was too vanilla. And that ranked 13th in the league in 2024. Steelers have been known for bring pressure, bring more than what they can block. Didn't do that. Never did that. Never did that, and I believe it was a mistake. It was a mistake. Got to get more aggressive. Try to trick some people. And that's part of the problem as far as being vanilla. You know, look at the packages. The Steelers, I've said this all along. Since the season ended, even during the season, the Steelers were in 58.2% of the time they were in the nickel. And here's the thing. A lot of the times that they were in the nickel, it wasn't that teams were in 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 receivers. A lot of the times teams were just in base formation, you know, pro sets, you know, 1 back, 2 back, 2 receivers, a tight end. They were in that. A lot of times teams, they were in 12 personnel, 1 back, 2 tight ends. Steelers are still in the nickel. Didn't understand that a lot. Didn't understand that at all. Just doesn't make sense, some of the packages. And then their base defense, 25.6% of the time, 266 snaps on the season. That's not enough. That's not enough. And I know that teams want to throw it. I get that. I get that teams are going to throw on the football a lot these days. But 25% of the time you're in your base 3-4 defense, to me, that's not enough. They were in the dime 12% of the time, which was 125 snaps on the season. 12% of the time. I don't know, people. Goal line, not much, only 8 snaps. Now, again, goal line doesn't always mean that teams are on the goal line to line up. It could be a 3rd and 1, a 4th and 1. When teams go to big personnel, you can go to big personnel. Doesn't mean you have to be playing your base defense. Go to a 6-2. Get bigger people out there. 8 snaps, that's not enough. That's not enough. I just 44 personnel, which maybe that's a goal line, not 4-3, but 4-4 personnel. Again, you got bigger people. Only 2.3% of the time, 24 snaps. So that's the difference there. That's the difference there. It just some of the packages that the Steelers were in, it just didn't seem like they matched up personnel wise, which again, that's coaching. You telling me a team comes out in 12 personnel. I mean, what are we doing in nickel? What are we doing in nickel? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all, man. Let's go to the poll. They got to get that cleaned up. That's the one thing I know. They have to get that cleaned up. All right. So the poll question, which area of the Steelers defense, the poll went off. Let's get it back up there. Sorry about that. Which area of the Steelers defense do you believe needs the most improvement? A, stopping the run. B, secondary coverage. C, blitzing schemes. Or D, overall creativity. Which area of the Steelers defense do you believe needs the most improvement? Again, add a 2 to whatever letter that you choose when you answer the question in the comment section. Appreciate that, guys. Let's move on here. Let's move on. We are at halftime. And again, I want to thank everybody that has given their support to Steelers Almighty, man. It means a lot. We are coming up. Next Friday is our 1-year anniversary. Now, we're not going to have an anniversary show or anything like that, although I'm sure I'm going to bring it up. But April 4th of 2024 is when we kicked off this channel. Hadn't done anything like it before and just decided, you know what, let's kick this thing off and get it going. And it's grown tremendously in the year that we have been around. And that's because of you guys, man. I thank each and every one of you guys for all the support that you guys have given us, man. We really do, really do appreciate it. Look, we're at 6830 and the counter keeps going as far as the number of subscribers right now. Want to be at 8,500 by the time the season starts. That's a lofty goal, but it's a goal I think we can get there, man. We're going to put our head down and keep grinding. So hopefully you all will grind with us. Another thing is, again, memberships. We have some come, go, but the memberships keep rising, man. So thank you guys for supporting us there. Like I mentioned before, we have 5 separate tiers of memberships that are available. Obviously, the higher up you go, the more access you get. A lot of people ask me, hey, B, how do we get in that all 22 the entire game? Got to be at the all-pro level or higher to be able to get onto that. So that is absolutely available. You guys will like that. And when you're going back and seeing the games and watching some of these games, you're like, man, this was a good play. This was good. Hey, the Steelers played good. But then you'll say, boy, that wasn't great. What's going on? So that's just one access to it. Another one, when we do these lives, we're doing 2 lives a week now. We do one on Monday evening at 7 p.m. Central Time. And we also do another one on Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. So make sure you guys are around for those and plan accordingly. If you can come in, we appreciate it. That's some of the things that we're doing different. We're just trying to match up schedules, but make sure that, and you'll notice in those lives, the people that are members, they get priority access. Is that I answer their questions. I always bring them up on the screen because they are members of Steelers Almighty. So those are just 2 of the many avenues and I guess things that belong as far as a member that you're going to get. So I appreciate all that support. Thank you guys. Let's get moving on with this thing. So, should the Steelers go corner in the first round? It's been a topic of conversation here as of late. What are we doing? For me, I keep talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers because I'm like, look, or talking about the Steelers doing something in the first round because I am a big proponent of attacking the position. They did it with Joey Porter Jr. I know he was a second round draft pick just because I think it was New England didn't have a pick that year. I get it. But he's a 32nd pick. That's technically a first round pick as far as the numbers are concerned. So we haven't drafted a first rounder in a long time. And I get it. But we haven't attacked the cornerback number 2 position. Look, Joey Porter Jr., like I said, he was number 32. Corey Trice was a 7th round pick in the same year, but he was the 241st pick. I think, like I mentioned before, and again, not trying to insult anybody, just trying to have a little fun here. I think people have a little PTSD, or maybe the Steelers do, from the Artie Burns draft. Look, that was in 2016. That was the last time the Steelers took a cornerback in the first round. And I think we all know how that ended up for the Steelers. Just wasn't good. Now, I will mention that Artie Burns is still in the league, which, okay, good for him. Like I said, I want everybody to be able to live out their dream as long as possible. But what I do know is when Artie Burns was with the Steelers, he was not good. And that's being nice. And I'm going to be nice today. I'm going to be nice today. He was not good with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we haven't taken another corner in the first round. Coverage has continued to be an issue with the Steelers. Now, granted, the way that the rules have changed and the way that the rules are, I totally understand, but coverage has been a problem. Look, JPJ, I like JPJ. I think he's a great corner. But people talking about him before last season and said, well, he's a shutdown corner. I'm like, no, he isn't. No, he isn't. And last season proved that he's good. I'll go that he's very good. But don't tell me he's a top 10 corner right now because that's not the case. And that's okay. He can get there. He still has things he has to work on, but he grabs way, way too much, doesn't cut off routes. I know he's putting in the time, or it appears that he's putting in the time because you see some weeks that he does against decent receivers. He's cutting them off. He's right there. Look, you can't just stop somebody from catching passes these days in the National Football League. If you run a shallow cross in man coverage, sometimes the guys just run away from you. I mean, they catch a 4-yard route. What are you going to do? You can be right there with them, but if it's a perfect pass and they catch the ball, it is what it is. In football, good offense always beats good defense. It's the way it works. So it's not that you have to stop somebody entirely, but you have to, play good D. You got to be around. You got to make it difficult. And so many times, Steelers aren't even making it difficult. They're running bender routes towards a free safety, and they get behind the safety. Our corners are always trailing, at least the backside corner, which was Dante Jackson, 3-4 yards. It's despicable. So coverage has been a problem. You know, Passing league, that's what this currently is. And if we're in a passing league, at some point you have to have guys that can just cover without grabbing, without pushing. Obviously physical contact is going to happen. It's a football game. But the rules are the rules. So we have to abide by the rules. So you have to get guys on your team that are able to cover people without constantly with a physical grabbing, punching, holding. You got to be able to do that. Get physical within the rules. Ball goes down the field. Do what's allowed. There's hand fighting that gets allowed, but you can't grab. You can't panic. You can't do those kinds of things as corners. So we got to be able to find people that can do it. Now, look, in the first round, some of that's going to be available for the Steelers. Jahadi Barron, out of Texas. Will Johnson, another guy. These guys are very, very good. And both of them, it looks like they may be falling in the draft, especially Will Johnson from Michigan. They're talking about him dropping, because he had a shoulder injury, and there is a ton of talk about him dropping. Trey Amos from Mississippi, another guy. A person that I really like, ran super well at the combine, is Maxwell Hairston. out of Kentucky. He's a slot corner, you know, and you got to have a decent slot corner in this league now, especially when they line up the teams that line up their best receivers at slot corner or in the slot, I should say. You got to have a good slot corner these days. And as much as we love Beanie Bishop, if we can upgrade at that position, I would absolutely love to upgrade at that position. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. So that's kind of what's going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, man. I think that corner is just a position that they're just going to have to attack. They're just going to have to attack it. Will they do it in the first round? Probably not. But I wouldn't be opposed if one of these guys fall, especially Barron or Johnson. If those two guys fall in the first round, it would need to be a difficult discussion not to take them if I'm a Pittsburgh Steeler, depending on who's available, depending on who's available. But that would be a tough discussion, man. Let's go to the poll question. All right. Poll number 3. Do you believe investing in a top cornerback in this draft or in the draft can significantly improve the Steelers' defense? A, yes, it will strengthen our pass defense. Or B, no, we have bigger issues to solve. Again, A or B, make sure you add a 3 behind what answer that you put into the comment section. Do you believe investing in a top cornerback in the draft can significantly improve the Steelers' defense? It's going to be interesting, especially where we pick. It's going to be interesting. Let's move on, man. Let's move on. So this one, I had a couple people ask me about this. We talked about it earlier in the week, and I think it's a good question. I think it's a good topic, and I'm going to continue hammering this point. Can the Steelers go offensive tackle again in the first round? The last 2 years, the Steelers have taken offensive tackles. In 1 year, in 2023, they moved up from 17 to 14 to take Broderick Jones. Last year, Troy Fautanu fell to the Steelers. And he was a top 10 talent, had injury history. So he fell, especially the way the draft ended up because of all the quarterbacks that got taken in the top 12. So teams were like, hey, we'll take this guy's fallen. He literally fell into the lap of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's a good thing. However, the Steelers haven't really got the bang for their buck in the last 2 drafts. Now, look, do we really trust Broderick Jones? That's the very first question that we have to talk about with our tackles, is that we love Broderick Jones, but can we really trust him? I've had so many people, and they did it during the season when we were giving out grades, which we grade each position after every game. And there were a lot of grades that offensive line stunk, but Broderick Jones especially. And a lot of people were given the excuse, hey, he's hurt. He's out there playing hurt. He's out of position. And I always came back with the same argument, and it's the same 2 arguments that I'm going to give to you now. Is number 1, he, as a rookie, he came in and played right tackle, and he did a good job. He wasn't the best, but he did a good job. I think it's easy to say that he took a step back last year. His play, what he did, his punch. Now, he wasn't great his rookie year in pass protection, but he was much better than what he was in his second year. So that excuse as far as him being out of position, I'm not going to let you have that because, again, as a rookie, he was fine. Why, as a second year, did he take a step back? Okay, that's number 1. 2, people are out there saying that he's hurt. Hey, he's hurt. He's playing hurt. And okay, I'll even give you that he was hurt because I said it. I'm like, you know what? Maybe he has a UCL injury or a shoulder injury. I think it was an elbow, either a ligament or dislocation, something going on that maybe it was a tricep. Who the hell knows what was going on? But okay, he was hurt. But does being injured give you an excuse for bad play? You can see a guy, hey, he's out there, he's hurt, he's battling through it. He's not as good as what he can be if he's 100%. But they never say, oh, man, he's bad. He's playing terrible because he's hurt. When have you heard that? Because if you're that hurt and you can't play, get off the field. That's why I don't give him an excuse. You know, you don't get a pass for bad play because you're hurt. That's not what that means. That you're allowed to play bad. And that's what I just don't get, why people want to give that excuse of, well, he was hurt, but he was out there playing bad, but he was hurt. No, it doesn't mean that. You don't get to play bad just because you're hurt. Yes, you can fight through it. I totally understand that. And I give you that. But if it's so bad that you're playing bad, well, you got to get off the field. That's the reason I don't give him that pass. I just don't. So Broderick, again, can you trust him? And just going over to the left side, is that going to fix the issue? Are we sure that just moving over? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. I want him to be better. I think he can be better. I think he understands that, hey, it's now or never, or the Steelers are going to give up on me. But maybe they won't. Heck, they gave Dan Moore 4 seasons. This is Broderick's 3rd. But again, that's a conversation of, hey, maybe we made a mistake. Do we need to keep living in this mistake? I say it all the time. It's worse to live in the mistake than actually making the mistake. If you make the mistake and you know it and you just, we're not going to do anything about it right now, that's worse than actually making the mistake. Look at Troy Fautanu. Let's move to him. Fell to the Steelers. Fell right in our lap, like I mentioned. Had some injury issues in college, and that's kind of the reason that he fell. But he comes out, plays well, but the injury bug never left. Heck, the very first football game that he played in, he got hurt in the preseason. He got hurt. But he had done so much leading up to that and getting back that the Steelers were like, as soon as he is back, he got put into the starting lineup. Like as soon as he was eligible to play, healthy enough to play, he's in the starting lineup. Boom. Takes Broderick Jones' job and plays well in that football game. Very next week in practice on Friday, goes down, knee injury, out for the year. Can you trust that guy? Now, again, we don't blame people for being hurt. That's not what you do. But you do have to make a decision. Can you count on that person? And that's where we're at with Troy Fautanu. Can we count on him? Because you talk about, injury prone. Hell, the very first game you played, you get hurt. You come back, you play a game, and in practice, you get hurt the very next week. I mean, I would like to say that was a redshirt year, which is fine to say, but at some point, we got to be able to count on you. It's not being mad at somebody or blaming them that they got hurt when you're just saying, can we count on you? And that's where we're at with Troy Fautanu. Can we count on this guy? So look, should the Steelers go in the draft and take another guy? And there are some tackles that are going to be available. Now, again, it depends on, how this thing shakes out as far as the draft shakes out. We never know. This might be a year where maybe all the tackles go early. Maybe they go late. Who the hell knows? But there's some guys. Armand Mimbu, I think that's how you say his name, out of Missouri, is starting to shoot up the draft boards, and he's kind of the top guy right now. Kelvin Banks, another guy out of Texas, great football player. Will Campbell, we've heard about him forever, out of LSU. Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Josh Connerly is a guy, he went viral early in the draft process because he got blown up and literally put on his back at the Senior Bowl after one rep. Looked bad. Didn't look bad the rest of the time. Had a good football game in the Senior Bowl. Had a good career, but because of that, falling down draft boards, that's a guy the Steelers might be able to steal. But I think they got to take a look at it. Now, in the first round, I don't know. You got to give your guys at least a chance. But I would say if you need the help, because they do need a swing tackle from somewhere, and I think they need a swing tackle that's better than the guys that are currently on the roster, because we saw some of those come into the game last year. Calvin Anderson, he couldn't play. It literally came into the game, gave up a sack. So he can't play. So that's what I'm talking about, is that we need some guys back there that can play a little bit of football, And there's other guys, don't get me wrong. These are just the top guys in the draft. But do the Steelers do it? Do they say, you know what? We can't trust who we got. We're going to create some competition and we're going to press them and we're going to draft another guy in the first round. Now, I don't think they will, but I don't think it should be out of the question, people. I really don't. Let's go to the poll question. I don't think they should. I don't think this should be something that's out of the realm at all for the Pittsburgh Steelers. How confident are you in Broderick Jones as a starting tackle for the Steelers moving forward? A, very confident. I believe he has a bright future. B, somewhat confident, but he needs to improve himself. Or C, not confident. We need to look for another option. I'm interested to see your all's answer to this. I got a feeling it's going to be all over the board, because here's the thing. I think all of it's true. I think all of it can be true. So make sure you add a 4 at the end of the poll on this one. This will be very, very interesting, people. Now, look, here's the thing, man, about the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think this is a very pivotal draft. I think that it is. There's a lot of noise about quarterback and who's going to be the quarterback. I don't think we need to be panicked right now, but this is a pivotal draft. We got to get players. We've got to get bodies. We have to upgrade our roster. And I think a lot of people, maybe you don't want to just say that out loud. It's okay to say. We need to upgrade the roster. I've said it for years. The Steelers are trying to rebuild and flip the roster while still being relevant. It's a tricky thing to do. I've never really seen anybody do that. Usually, if you're rebuilding, your team stinks for a couple of years. Well, the Steelers haven't stunk. And that's part of the problem, is that they don't, so they don't have access to better players. So this is a pivotal year. They got to hit again. I'm not going to say that the Steelers have missed. I think their drafts have been okay. But I think we need a big draft with big time contributors this season. We got to hit. We got to hit. And if we do that, I think the outlook for 2026 can be better than what people believe that it can be. I believe that. But again, got to hit on the draft. Got to find those hidden gems on guys because of where we're picking. Got to find some hidden gems with some people that maybe everybody's not thinking about, but you've done your research and these guys can play football and contribute right now. I'm not saying they have to be day one starters, but we can't have this whole Mike Tomlin, well, yeah, they're probably good enough to start, but because they're a rookie, I'm going to wait till week 5 or 6 before I put them in the starting lineup. Absolutely not. Those days are over. Those days have to be. They need to be over for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Nobody else is doing that. You draft a guy early, put him out there. It's time to play. It's time to play. So that's all I got for you guys. I appreciate you guys being in here. Thank you for everything that you have done. We love the support. We appreciate you, and we will talk to you soon. Aloha.